Joan.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
Not
All right.
great.
Not great?
No,
Well, we got to get great. It's a beautiful day.
That's right.
it's
Um,
extremely windy, and I'm allergic to all the stuff that's in the air.
ah, I hear you. That's annoying.
Yeah.
That's no fun.
So I have, I guess it's a question suggestion. I didn't, I never know what the quantity of these meals are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if there would be 2 stuffed cabbage or 4 or whatever. So is it possible to have like, this will make 3 cabbages?
You know what? I think that's a fantastic idea. I do. I
Because,
like that a lot. I really do. I never thought of that. So we can add that for next week's meal kits for sure.
yeah, because in like the Friday short ribs, what comes with that? I don't know.
So
You know,
the family pack.
yeah. I
So
have,
that's gonna have braised beef short ribs, mashed potatoes, garlic broccolini, and then some New York cheesecake. So it's a full dinner that all you have to do is throw in the oven.
okay. Except for
Um,
the cake.
except you could put the cheesecake in the oven. I don't know how good it's gonna be.
I make one good cheesecake. I'll have to share it with you sometime.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Um, should we get cabbage roll making?
You bet.
All right.
Yeah.
So in our kits, we should all have cabbage, green pepper, onion, ground beef, garlic, salt, granulated garlic, rice, and tomato puree. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and boil that cabbage. So if your water is boiling, just drop it in there. It's just going to take a minute or so. What we want to do is kind of break down the cabbage a little. We don't want it to cook to complete mush because it's going to cook more in the sauce.
Doing one piece at a time?
Whatever you can fit in your pot, honestly.
Okay.
I have a small pot here because I'm using this little burner. But I just let it go for a minute or two, just so till it's, kind of soggy like this. And then I set it aside because it's going to continue to cook as it sits here and steams. One of my favorite things about this dish is when the cabbage gets all soggy in the sauce. So I don't want to take it too soggy at this point because it'll sweeten up the sauce nicely once it's all done.
Oh,
Are we doing
All right. So you're just cooking it just till the leaves get nice and soft and
we know how to do it.
kind of limp.
I usually put,
Okay, just blanches them briefly in hot water.
yeah, well, I used to take a whole cabbage
And dump it.
and pump it to get the core out,
Mhm.
and then take the leaves.
So you could do that too. I just find this is a little easier to peel it earlier because it's just less to wrestle with. But whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you get your cabbage pre-boiled, then you've done what you need to do. So then, wait till you guys are done with that.
I can't get this much off. Here.
I think we have more than one.
Oh,
That's fine.
here, that was it.
No,
There.
there we go. Okay, there we go.
Oh, wait.
No,
Oh.
I'll just leave it like that. Okay.
All right.
We caught you slacking off, Mark.
Oh, watching somebody else there.
See, you guys are smart. You're all using your tongs.
Better than your fingers.
Amen.
Well, I think I saw Julia Child do that, right? You just get in there quick.
Yeah, she had asbestos hands. When we were in sugar class learning how to make like candy and stuff in school, you had to take the sugar to a certain degree, and it was well over 250 degrees. But what you would do is soak your hand in ice water until it's completely numb, and then dip it real fast in the sugar water and the sugar syrup, and then back in the ice water. And that's how you tested the doneness of the sugar.
Yeah.
And now thinking back, like that was so dumb because you get the same thing from using a thermometer. But it,
Yeah,
like,
they
okay.
want you to kill yourself.
Yeah. It was miserable. All right, so we're gonna take our peppers and onions and we're gonna dice them up. Now, how big or small you do them is completely up to you. I like them smaller because I like them to cook. We're gonna cook these, we're gonna put them in raw. So I wanna make sure that they soften up nicely inside the cabbage. So the onions I cut a little bit smaller than the peppers because again, I want them to soften and get nice and sweet. And I don't want them to stay raw in there. I don't want to have too much of that raw onion crunch. So you can see the size of mine right there. And then I'm only going to use like a half a clove of garlic. This doesn't need a lot of it.
So the 4 that you gave us, I shouldn't use all of it?
No, you were supposed to get 1.
I like garlic, I did too.
There you go. So I'm going to take my veggies and put them in a mixing bowl. And again, I like a lot of veggies in mine personally, but it's completely up to what you like. And then I take the ground beef and I just crumble it in there because if I drop the whole chunk in and start working it up too much, it's going to get very mushy. Those fats are going to break up. So I like to just lightly crumble the ground beef mix in there. And then I'll go ahead and mix it when I add the rice too. But at least this way I kind of have a jump start to getting it all mixed together. See? And then I'll throw the rice in. And 1 or 2 tablespoons of the tomato puree. Not a ton, just enough to help bind this all together. But the ground beef is going to bind nicely in here. Now, some people like to add an egg to this. I don't like to because as the rice cooks more, it's going to bind it. It's going to absorb a lot of liquid. And I feel like adding an egg sometimes just makes it a little too dense. But that's all up to your personal preference. But I find that just the straight ground beef mixed in here with the rice and everything holds together really nicely.
Was that rice totally cooked or parboiled?
It was like 90% cooked.
Okay.
Okay. And now I'm going to add the garlic powder in here and the salt. And now remember, when this starts to cook, the rice is going to absorb some of that salt. Anything starchy like this will pick up some of the salt flavor. And now these guys should be cold enough where they're room temperature at least, where we could start working with them and we're not afraid to put raw product in here because sometimes if things are too hot and you put raw product in, it just doesn't get, I don't know, it gets kind of funky in consistency. But I like to take my bowl and break this into 3 sections before I do this. So I know that I'm going to have 3 nice, big, meaty cabbage rolls in here.
Exactly.
And now to stuff this, I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to go tuck my sides over and just roll it. This is the same process if I was making like wrapped grape leaves or a burrito, for example. It's that tuck the sides in and roll. See, and now I have this nice little bundle, this little package here, that when I cook it, it's not gonna pop out the sides or anything. And honestly, if it does a little bit, it's not the end of the world, because it's all gonna be in a casserole dish. Did everyone get to see that?
Yes.
No,
No?
it's head down in my mixing bowl.
All right, check it out real quick. So you're gonna fold your sides in,
Yep.
okay? And then just roll over. And as I'm rolling, I just kind of tuck with my fingers. So I got 3 nice little kind of chimichangas here.
Yeah.
And everybody loves chimichangas. So what we're gonna do next then is put a little bit of the tomato puree at the bottom of the pan of your casserole dish or whatever you're using. And now I don't season this because the beef has seasoning, like that whole mixture has seasoning. So this is gonna pick up a ton of flavor from that. And then I'll add the 3 cabbage rolls with the seam side down.
Now it's the tomato from a can?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I take a little bit more and I go right over the top. And this will just kind of help. I like to see the cabbage so I don't completely soak it in there. But I want to know that it's on top. So there's a few things you can do at this point. If I were to add aluminum foil, let's say, just straight aluminum foil on here, it's going to be great. But what might happen is sometimes the acid in the tomatoes reacts with the foil, and you'll see like almost little pieces of aluminum foil on here. So what I do sometimes is I'll take a piece of parchment paper or wax paper or anything, put it on top, and then wrap it in foil. It's kind of just that extra layer of protection to make sure that that doesn't happen. So it's kind of a good practice. But then we cover it with foil. And this will go in the oven at 375 for about 40 minutes, depending on how big. So the time it cooks all depends on just how big we made those cabbage rolls, right? If we made them a little bit smaller, obviously they cook less. You make big giant ones, which you could, they're gonna cook more. But this is essentially gonna kind of steam and braise in here. And all the flavors will kind of melt. Now when it's done, we want it to be nice and firm. It should feel like a meatball inside. And I kind of equate everything to meatballs, as you could tell. But that's kind of like the surefire way to know it's cooked. The other thing is you can take the temperature. If it's above 145 degrees, then when you pull it out and rest it, it's going to be great. And this is really one of those dishes that's fantastic today. It's fantastic tomorrow. It's really great anytime to eat. But that little bit of tomato sauce inside and then all that seasoning and vegetables, it's going to give just a wonderful casserole flavor. And then 375 in the oven. And when it's done, it's done. Any questions on that?
No. I
How much,
have my
how much
grandmother's.
tomato puree did you put in the bottom?
I beg your pardon?
How much tomato puree did you put in the bottom of the?
So it depends on how big your casserole dish is. So you want it to be a nice even layer on the bottom.
Got it.
You really can't go too much sauce. As long as you're not coming, once you put the cabbage in, more than halfway up the cabbage, then you're good.
Okay.
What else would you serve with it?
With the cabbage rolls, I mean, I like them just how they are because they have rice inside. But I mean, you can serve it with mashed potatoes. You could serve it with just another side of vegetables. It's kind of just an all-in-one meal. Personally, I think the other, it'd be good over polenta because that sauce, I think, gets really sweet and delicious. But yeah, I love them. I love them just like this.
Okay. Or crusty bread.
Oh yeah, definitely. You have to have crusty bread with this.
I didn't make bread today.
Ah, you're slacking.
I know.
It's because you had to get the tomato puree. That's on me.
No problem.
It could completely be my fault.
There was a little bit of tomato puree in there.
Yeah, so the guys packed 2 ounces instead of 2 cups.
Oh,
So that's where the confusion came in. And then when you took off with yours, I'm like, oh no.
Well, it's a good thing I went with Jeff because they forgot half the order.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, really?
I said, where are my eggs? You changed vendors.
We have some beautiful eggs now.
They look great.
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're from Slagle Farms. They're absolutely gorgeous eggs.
This is high class.
Good.
Right,
Good.
Michael, you said put a sheet of parchment over the casserole?
I like to put a sheet of parchment before the foil, and that's going to help any of that foil from sticking to the tomato sauce.
Got it.
It's just, sometimes if you're putting you can also put a sheet of plastic if it's a food grade plastic, but parchment just works so much better.
Okay, and then just enough tomato puree to kind of cover the cabbage rolls
Yeah.
on top. Perfect.
Yep.
Feel
All right.
good about it.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah,
No.
this you probably just answered. Put the remaining tomato sauce over the cabbage leaf.
Yeah. So put a little bit over. You can see here. See how it's got.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't need a ton, but just
Yeah.
a little, and that's going to kind of help all the flavors meld together too, because that tomato paste will baste from the top as well, or that tomato puree.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah, great.
Well, in 40 minutes, enjoy your dinner.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone.